Hello, and welcome to another edition of What's Up, Missoula, where MCAT interviews representatives from nonprofit organizations. And with us today, we have representatives from the Falun Dafa organization, also called Falun Gong. We have with us Lori Hamill and Catherine Combs. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and in case people don't know this, every Friday on MCAT we do cablecast an hour-long tape that comes from the Falun Dafa organization, and that is Friday mornings here in Missoula from 7 to 8 a.m. And so people might be already a little familiar with what goes on with Falun Dafa. And Lori and Catherine are here to kind of go deeper into the explanation about it. But if you tune in on Friday mornings from 7 to 8 a.m., you'll see that about a half an hour of the show is about the history of Falun Dafa, and then there'll be maybe a case of someone who's practiced it, and we're going to go into how the Chinese government is suppressing the practice of Falun Dafa and why. And then there's some artists who've practiced Falun Dafa, and some of their work in the last half hour is usually devoted to the Falun Dafa exercises, which we're not going to go into that in too much detail today, actually showing you the exercises. So if you'd like to see the exercises, you can just tune in about 7:30 Friday mornings on MCAT, and you can see what these exercises are that we're going to be referring to today. Anyway, so we have so much to talk about. We do have a couple of film clips we're going to show you also, but let's start out by, I'd love to ask what you'd like to talk about today on the show. Anything in particular?
Maybe what Falun Dafa has done for us individually.
Excellent. So this is Catherine, and go ahead and tell me what.
Okay. Well, I've been practicing for almost 8 years now. Mm-hmm. It'll be 8 years in February, mm-hmm. and I have had many benefits from practicing this. One thing, it's like cultivating a garden. You cultivate what is good, and the weeds or the bad old notions you weed out and try to let go of. It's letting go of attachments that don't serve you. Mm-hmm. And the things that has happened to me because of that, I have much more clarity of mind. Mm-hmm. I am much more balanced. I don't have so many ups and downs anymore. I'm more on an even keel. And which brings me more peace of mind, which mm-hmm. I've never had this with any other practice. And I was searching for something that had some principles that I could live by. And the truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance are such wonderful principles to live your life by. Mm-hmm. So when you really practice those three things, there's a lot of good things that happen to you. Mm-hmm.
You said also you had some health benefits from it.
Yes.
From the exercises.
I had a chronic neck problem from an accident when I was in my early 20s. I had arthritis starting in my neck, and it was pretty chronic when I started practicing, and that completely went away. And I don't hardly ever get sick. It's almost like a self-healing. You kind of do your own, with the Qigong exercises, it helps clear away a lot of the negative energy, and I've just benefited lots from doing the Qigong exercises and the meditation. Mm-hmm. There's 4 standing exercises and 1 sitting meditation. Mm-hmm. And if you're faithful to doing that, especially with the meditation, it's really helped me to temper my mind. I have more tolerance because mm-hmm. of it, and so I do that every morning for about an hour, and we do studying of the book Zhuang Falun. Lori can show us that. Mm-hmm. And so it's dedication. If you're dedicated to this, there's really good things that happen to you. Mm-hmm. So with anything, if you make it a priority, you'll get benefits from it. It's just finding the time to do what serves you well. So
yeah, I started reading one of the books, and I see that the founder, what's his name?
Li Hongzhi.
Li Hongzhi.
Yes.
It's a really interesting philosophy, because basically what he's trying to do is what I see is he's trying to teach you how to protect yourself from negative forces in your life, and how to bring in positive forces, and just to be a better person. And I know that the two of you don't make any money off of this, and that's kind of part of the philosophy.
Right.
And you are just trying to, help make a better world for yourself and anyone around you.
And it's a lot of the compassion, thinking of others first, not thinking of always yourself so much, but when you're doing something, how is this going to affect the other person? Just to be more mindful of others, and just not think of yourself so much.
And so how long have you been practicing?
I've been practicing about the same time. I began in April of the same year, so it's about 7.5 years for me, I guess. And I actually taught myself off the internet. I met Catherine for lunch one day. We were friends before we practiced Falun Dafa. And I went home and looked it up on the internet, and everything about the practice is free of charge. You can download the video exercises. The books are all on a website, www.falundafa.org. And so I looked that up, and the screen was pretty small, and I just looked really close, and I taught myself how to do the exercises. And the first time I did the exercises, I had an experience that then I later read about in the book. And I realized that there was a lot to Falun Dafa, and that I had done a lot of other things, but when I started doing this, I realized I would be doing it for a long time, and I still am, and it becomes more boundless the longer I do it.
Well, I've noticed that I've done it myself, and I notice I feel a lot of energy in my hands. And I felt that the first time I did it was my hands got warm, and they seemed to be, I could really feel the energy emanating from them. So I've never really felt that way with anything else. So yeah, it's pretty instantaneous if you just start doing them. And I noticed that things pop in my body. It's like, oh, I'm definitely, why don't I always move like this? And yeah, it's
a lot of
really
energy releases, and some people get very warm, and still sometimes when I do the exercises, my body will get very, very warm from the inside out. And I did it at a workshop at the Blackfoot Indian Reservation last year, and one man came up and he was just sweating. He said, "I've never been so hot without doing aerobic exercises before."
And these are just slow moving, very simple,
But
basically
very powerful.
5 exercises. It's pretty amazing. And so anyway, we were going to talk about the different things that are happening around the world. Should we show one of these film clips we have to sort of introduce what we're going into next?
Sure. Which one?
I would
would
say
be
that
best
the
for
practice, the torch relay.
The torch relay. Okay, sure. Actually, in Missoula, in April of 2008, actually, we're hoping April 26th, a torch is going to come to Missoula that was lit in Athens, Greece, and it's gone partway around the world. It's been in Europe, and it's now in Australia, and it's called the Global Human Rights Torch Relay, and it's to bring awareness about the human rights abuses that occur in China. Falun Gong being the most severely persecuted group in China today, but of course there are also Tibetans and Uyghurs and Mongolians and activists, political activists and human rights activists and Christians, and just a whole list of people who the Chinese Communist Party persecutes. And so what we're trying to do is rally all these groups together in a common goal to bring awareness about human rights abuses going on in China, in lieu of the fact that they were awarded the 2008 Olympics. They have not lived up to their agreement to improve their human rights abuses. And so we would like to see a change made before the Olympics are held in Beijing in 2008. And so we do have a beginning video. I wanted to show this. We have our T-shirts on, and this is the slogan, and that's a human rights torch with an outlay of China in barbed wire. And then the slogan for this is, "The Olympics and crimes against humanity cannot coexist in China." And we have a website that you can show as well. And so if we show this short video, it would be a good introduction.
Okay, we'll go ahead and show that video now.
Dusk at Syntagma Square, Athens, Greece, August 9th, 2007. One flame ignites others, and birth is given to a momentous event that will travel around the world. The Global Human Rights Torch Relay will thread through 5 continents, in more than 35 countries and regions, and over 150 cities, igniting the flame of concern and compassion in the hearts of millions. The message is simple and direct. Human rights abuse cannot coexist with the 2008 Beijing Olympics. The privilege of hosting the Olympic Games was granted to China in 2001 in hopes its human rights record would improve. In the past 6 years, however, that record has only worsened. A growing list of interest groups are voicing concerns over a huge range of persecutions from Falun Gong, Tibetan Buddhists, Christians, Uyghur Muslims, rights advocates, reporters, defense lawyers, to the enabling of genocide in Darfur. Initiated by the Coalition to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong in China, the Torch Relay invites the participation of all groups espousing a stop to all human rights abuses in China.
What we're trying to do here and in the relay that's about to start is to put enough pressure on the government of China in the lead up to the Olympics that they will stop killing their own people and selling their livers and kidneys and so on to people around the world.
The Chinese regime must first ratify human rights by stopping the killing and respect human rights.
Today we know what is happening in China, and I will make sure that what should be done will be done.
The Olympic Games began in 776 BC and continued until they were abolished in the early Christian era for being pagan. They were revived in 1896. The Olympic flame and the long journey of the torch relay, although a fairly recent addition to the ceremonies, are rooted in ancient traditions of religion and democracy. Although human rights as we know them today were not an issue then, they are nevertheless the underpinning of human society. It is becoming increasingly clear that disregard for the health of global human rights is not something that our planet can continue to ignore. The time to speak out is now. Are you one of those who will carry the torch for the cause of human rights around the world?
That was really interesting. I'm so glad we had that. So I hear it says here, if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. That's Archbishop Desmond Tutu saying that. You were telling me that you have a book here that was written by an attorney who's been fighting for the rights of Falun Dafa practitioners, and now he's in jail.
I especially wanted to mention this man, Lawyer Gao. He's done a lot. I'm trying to get the shadow there. He's done a lot for Falun. He's a self-made lawyer in China. He was a very poor man. And he became a human rights attorney. And he was put on house arrest when he started defending Falun Dafa practitioners in China. And since then, he wrote an open letter to the U.S. Congress explaining what's really going on in China day to day with human rights, talking about Falun Gong, but talking about a lot of other human rights abuses as well. And 2 days after that letter arrived in the United States to the U.S. Congress, he was disappeared. He was arrested and disappeared.
When was that?
And that was at the end of last month. And so we have no idea where he is or what's happened to him, but he's a very special person and a very righteous person.
And he wrote that book?
He did.
He's not a Falun Gong practitioner. He's a Christian. So he just supports human rights of any kind.
So part of what we are trying to do with the torch relay is to encourage all other groups, and I want to pour this out to Missoula citizens, is we'd really like other groups, Christians, the Tibetan community. I understand there's some Burmese people living here, to please come and join us for this torch relay, and over the next few months we'll be trying to contact these people and invite them to join us, and all of us join together to bring awareness about what is really going on in China.
So now you say if he's a Christian and so he's not a Falun Dafa practitioner, can't you be a Christian and also practice Falun Dafa? Or not? Isn't it not a religion? I didn't get the impression it was a religion. It's just sort of a philosophy.
Well, anyone of faith is persecuted in China.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes, but because of the Communist Party, anything that doesn't support the party or believes beyond the party is not supported by the party. So there are two types of Christians in China. There are Christians that are supported by the party, and there are Christians that are outside of the party. And you can imagine the Christians that are outside of the party are the ones that are persecuted.
Okay. So when you're looking for people to, can they get in touch with you then about to keep up, and also the website? Where would they know how to participate in whatever's going to happen in Missoula? And that would be in you're thinking April 26, 2008.
Yes. Yeah, and when we have not actually formulated exactly what's going to happen, but it's going to be in the form of we're actually going to get seedlings, tree seedlings, to grow trees for growing human rights, to give away, and then we'll run the torch into town, and we're going to have some group activities like some singing and some speakers, and we're going to ask different officials to come and speak. And so it's going to be a day event, and also we're going to give away some lotus flowers and just make it a community event.
And there are athletes, as we saw, that are they are against having the Olympics in China because of the abuses.
And some of those athletes that you saw were Olympic participants from previous years and winners, medal winners as well. Yes, there are many athletes that don't support having the Beijing Olympics.
Okay, and so I know that, you know, you have this phenomenon where in China before 1999, when it was outlawed, there would be, did you say thousands and thousands, or how many did you say were practicing in mass?
Excuse me, they actually, the Chinese Communist Party actually initially supported Falun Gong because they saw so many people with improved health benefits from it. And they actually did quite a few statistics on all this. But when it became so popular, they did a statistic where there were almost 70 million people practicing Falun Gong. And at the same time, there were only 60 million people who were Communist Party members. And at that point, the government became very afraid of it under the leadership of Jiang Zemin, who was the president at that time. He became very jealous of it. And that's when the government turned against Falun Gong. And then they actually set out to eradicate it. And that was their exact words. And they came down very hard on Falun Gong. They burned the books, they arrested people, people lost their jobs, people who were imprisoned. We figure there's been we have documented over 3,000 deaths due to torture while people were imprisoned. And then there has been about 10,000 put in mental institution, and about 100,000 we figure have been arrested, but it's actually, the figures are much greater than that. That's just what we can actually document.
And it doesn't only affect the practitioners, but their families are left without their spouse. The children, a lot of times, are left with no care. So it breaks the families apart. Of course, they lose their jobs. There's so many things that it affects when they take a person away just all of a sudden. So it's not just the practitioner, but the ripple effect of all their relatives, and they lose someone who has supported the family, because in China, a lot of families live together, the mom and dads, and so they lose that person who's supporting. There's just a lot of very negative things that happen, and the children are also really, really affected by it.
I know on some of the shows that I've seen on Fridays, they've actually shown that they arrested children too, with the mothers, and tortured them also. And what they're trying to do is what I saw. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like they're trying to get them to sign something that says they denounce Falun Dafa. And now that it has taken just a really ugly turn, because now the Chinese government is harvesting the organs of the Falun Gong practitioners, and all over the world they're selling their organs. They're killing them and selling their organs.
Well, and we have a little documentary about that we might want to show to kind of introduce that, and then maybe we can have a little more discussion about that.
Okay,
well, it's a good time for that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go right into this.
Organs are for sale in China. At least 36 death camps in China are harvesting organs from Falun Gong practitioners for sale on the black market, many of them while they are still alive. Organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners was confirmed by a 2-month investigation by former Canadian Secretary of State David Kilgour and the Canadian international human rights lawyer David Matas.
After considering everything as best we could, was that the allegations are true. We believe them to be true, that this harvesting is indeed happening.
The Canadian report finds executed prisoners cannot account for the rise in organ transplants starting in 1999. There were just as many executions before and after Falun Gong began to be persecuted, but the number of transplants increased by 41,500.
I had encountered some Chinese patients who had gone to China and came back with kidneys, and when I asked them where they came from, they said, oh, it was my cousin or something like that. But then some of them told me that they had bought the kidneys from executed prisoners.
The South China Post reported that 99% of organ transplants in China come from executed prisoners. The U.S. State Department has known about this, and it has been addressed at several hearings.
Right from the beginning, just months after the persecution first started in China, we got reports of tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of individuals being detained, put into prison camps, labor camps. This developed an increase over the years.
Investigations by the World Organization to investigate the persecution of Falun Gong have confirmed these findings.
Well, that was certainly disturbing. And Lori, you said you also have this brochure with you. You said people can look up online to get more information.
Yeah, this is called Bloody Harvest, and the two men that you saw in the DVD, the David Matas, who is the human rights lawyer from Canada, and David Kilgour, who is the Secretary of State to the Asian region in Canada, did this independent study, Bloody Harvest, and you can look this up online and read it. And really, it's a pretty comprehensive story about how organ harvesting came to be. It's a pretty big jump for any of us to think about this possibly happening in the world today. But when you consider that China does do more executions than any other, than all the other countries in the world combined, 90% of the world's executions, it's not such a hard leap to make that they would take their organs. Plus, they make a tremendous amount of money from organ harvesting, and it helps support their healthcare system and their military at this point. So I know you had some specific questions that we'd like to address if you'd like, Ricky.
So I know, I thought we talked once about how, let's say that if a person needs a certain blood type, a certain, heart, liver, whatever, that they will destroy more than one person looking for the right match. Is that true?
Well, what happens is, in this day and age, there are tissue rejection drugs that they can give patients. All you have to do is match the blood type. But if for some reason it doesn't work out, they will go from person to person to person, taking the organ until the transplant works at some of these hospitals. So what it means basically is that there's a huge organ bank of people, live people, and they actually are killing the people in the process of taking the organs, corneas, livers,
everything.
Kidneys.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Just all for money.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So they automatically give them a blood test when they enter the prison, and that's so they have a record of everyone and what their blood type is, and that's how they match.
And these are just people practicing Falun Dafa, which if people look it up, you'll see it's pretty innocent. It's no threat to the Chinese government or any other government. But, well, let's end on a happier note. You two go, as many other people do all over the world, just try to publicize what is happening in China and the wonderful benefits of Falun Dafa. And so, Catherine, you were going to talk about the float that you entered into the parade at the university. Tell me about
Yes, for the first time this year, we did enter our float, and what it was two very large lotus flowers, and we had two practitioners sitting inside the lotus flower in the sitting meditation. And then we had a demonstration of the Qigong exercises. And there was, I believe, 7 of us all together. And we handed out flowers, and it was just a wonderful experience. I just loved Missoula and their reactions to it. And then afterwards, we found out that we were 3rd place. We won 3rd place in the parades, and
Was this
got
the homecoming parade?
The homecoming parade, yes.
In 2007.
Yes, And so that was a real treat for us, and we just really appreciate Missoula and that they have supported us like they have. So thank you, Missoula.
Well, and thank you too for all the work you're doing, and you just have big hearts. It's very obvious, and thank you for introducing me to Falun Dafa. I love doing it.
Well, thank you for having
It's a
us.
joy. You bet.
Thanks very much,
Okay,
Ricky.
thanks for coming on
Thank
the show.
you.
Take care.